Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, once again joined by Zepsi. We both do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation, but we don't do these weekly updates in any official capacity. We're just coming on to you personally to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. Welcome, Zep.
How's it going, Brandon?
It's good. It's good like always. We have a lot to cover today, so I'm excited about it. Another quick note, this is not financial advice. We're going to get into the HBAR market. We're going to get into Hedera Defi. Might do a little bit of speculation and rumors, so use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So the first thing I wanted to touch on was something that was just announced yesterday morning, Karate Combat giveaway. It's huge. We have a quick clip that we're going to let everybody watch.
Everything Welcome to Karate Combat!
Wow. Today, Karate Combat is announcing the largest fan giveaway in the history of sports. We're not giving away tickets or t-shirts, and we're never giving away the pick. This December, Karate Combat is giving away the keys to the actual league. We've been working for years to build a platform that gives our fighters and our fans control of Karate Combat. A league controlled by the locker room and the living room, not the boardroom. To do this, Karate Combat is issuing its own karate token. And over time, the league will give away half of them for free to our athletes and fans.
All the fans get these Karate Combat tokens, and they can actually influence the league. If they place their tokens on the fighter they think is going to win, and they win, they get more tokens. If not, they have to try again next time.
This isn't a monkey pick or a dog pool. We're talking real transparency and control. And there's more. With our mobile app, you can boost your favorite fighters' bonus pools. And when they win, you win. Pick a winning fighter and earn more tokens, all without ever risking your stake. Don't forget to let us know where to send your tokens, senpai. Itchy go, itchy eat.
That is the first organization, the first ever sports franchise to launch a DAO. And at first glance, it's like, okay, it's karate. It's not UFC, it's not the F1. But first of all, I'll make it very clear that Karate Combat is rapidly growing. I mean, in the August event they had 6.6 million digital views for I think it was their launch event of the season, if I'm not mistaken. And then in that same month, they exceeded 143 million digital views. Of course, that's across their platforms, and across their 3.5 million fan base, which is again across platforms. But every single one of those viewers, obviously some of them will be duplicate, but every single one of those unique viewers saw the Hedera on there. Hedera in the centerpiece, the HBAR Foundation behind it. And at first glance, that's like, okay, wow, that's nothing, like, okay, VeChain sponsored the UFC, or, Crypto.com's on the F1 car. But the reason this announcement's been, taking longer than just when the initial branding came on was because it's so much more than just a branding license. This isn't just the Hedera logo slapped on the middle of Karate Combat. It's 50% of they're giving away 50% of an HTS token called Karate. I think 25% of that with the HTS and 25% with the ERC20. But either way, they're giving 50% away of this token, which is the governance token for their DAO. And not only are they rapidly growing, but they're the first sports league to become a DAO. So that immediately, that's news press. Immediately, they're a first mover in this entire new industry or revolution, perhaps, of decentralized autonomous organizations. So for me, it's like, A, they're the first leader. B, they've got a massive fan base and it's growing. And C, to show that it's more than a branding deal is big for me, definitely.
I tuned into their last thing. It was fantastic. I was impressed because I saw GSP, Lyoto Machida, Bas Rutten as their commentators. They're all entertaining guys and they're heavy hitters in the space. I've been a UFC fan for a really long time. I love how they're going to use the token for gamification. You can pretty much bet on your favorite fighters, and my gosh, those fights are exciting. But you can bet on your favorite fighters, but you can't lose. You only can gain tokens. So I think the gamification they're putting into the platform is fantastic. So One of the things that you mentioned was ERC20. And I'm not sure if it's ERC20 on Ethereum and then the rest are all HTS tokens, or if it's ERC20 on Hedera. I can't say one way or the other, but there was some confusion that came out of the community about ERC20s and Hedera. It had to do with HeliSwap. So they did a Twitter space and they're doing their native token, Heli, and it's going to be an ERC20. And as soon as people hear ERC20, they automatically think that it's an Ethereum token, but it's not. They're just using the ERC20 standard to build the token on our EVM, on Hedera's EVM. So they're still Hedera tokens. They're just not HTS tokens. So here's a quick explanation from one of their developers about exactly what they're doing.
For those who are listening who may not be aware, can you describe what it means when you say HeliSwap allows for, say, HTS or ERC20 or HBARs to be swapped?
Definitely. So in the Hedera network, as I mentioned, there are different services. One is called Hedera Token Service. The other one is the Hedera Smart Contract Service. We have a consensus service, etc. Those services, one of them, the HTS service, which is the Hedera Token Service, allows people to create tokens on the network, which are considered first-level citizens, or they can be perceived as assets that are not some random contracts as in other EVMs the ERC20 is. So when we're talking about HTS, we're talking about tokens that are native tokens to the network, that are first-level citizens and are recognized by the network. They're not abstractions that developers create. Now, ERC20 tokens are basically contracts that are written for the EVM, and they are a specific interface that they must conform to. So in our case, for HeliSwap, when we mentioned that we support the swapping of HTS tokens with ERC20s and HBARs, we are describing the process of actually swapping between HTS tokens, which are native to the network, along with ERC20 tokens living on the Hedera network that we foresee that there will be plenty of, and HBAR. So if you have a HBAR and you want to swap it with an HTS token, you'll be able to do that easily. If you have a token that's ERC20, and here I'm not mentioning an Ethereum ERC20 token, I'm mentioning just a token that's living on the Hedera network that's deployed as a contract, and you want to swap it with an HTS token, you'll be able to do that through HeliSwap, or you can swap it to HBARs as well. Now, this is somewhat controversial for ERC20s to exist on the Hedera network, but we can discuss, if we had the time later, on why we think that would be the case in the near future for Hedera.
Yeah, so I mean, it's I'm really glad they made that clarity there. It's great that they gave us that clarity that quickly. And I think that's one pivotal key piece of terminology that we need to begin to understand as the Hedera community. Now that we have our upgraded EVM, it's like there's going to be a lot of people, I think, that are going to be coming over and checking out our brand new upgraded EVM that also has HTS functionality. It's like, as an EVM, it's almost best in class because of that extra functionality. Again, it runs at 300 plus TPS, but you can also associate with the Hedera token service as well, and a variety of other things that the Hedera token service can do. And so there's going to be a lot of people that are coming over, and they might be saying, "Oh, we're an ERC20," but again, now we know ERC20 is a standard on the Hedera EVM. It's compatible, and so that isn't we shouldn't be running away from that token standard anymore. We can embrace it and see those transactions coming through the Hedera network.
Yeah, there was the misconception. I think people jump to conclusions when they see that ERC20. They get a little bit concerned because they associate it with Ethereum. But this is all Hedera. HeliSwap is all Hedera, so no worries there. The next thing we wanted to get into is the Generation Infinity podcast or Twitter space that happened this past Wednesday. Did you catch that one, Zap?
I did. You led the way there. It's brilliant. I saw Brandon's comment, the other Pixel Rug Brandon Davenport. And he said, as soon as you started talking about the funds and all the use cases, he couldn't stop smiling. So now I was the same on my side, to see the big hitters who are in that chat, and obviously to have you at the forefront of that force was amazing. And just to have the foundation there as an entity around these cross-chain audience, with BitBoy there, with XX, I think was one of the platforms on there, with Crypto Ari, who's an XRP influencer, with Solomon, with Kevin Cage, with some of these massive Smitty as well, of course, and then Expector, there was just a huge turnout. And I think it's, there's always been synergies between our community and the XRP community or Ripple community. And I think it's great to see these communities coming together like that in these shared spaces, where, we can learn that like XX, this new network, is doing great things with this sort of, I think it was quantum proof network. I haven't looked into it, but just to hear that stuff was really cool. To hear from Smith was cool. To hear from Spectre was cool. To hear, BitBoy's vast knowledge from someone who's been in the crypto space for such a long period of time. Kevin Cage's TA, it was just great. And to have so much conversation about Hedera there as well, to have a lot of our ecosystem projects turning out, it was just, I think it was a really, really important thing that's happened and is going to continue to happen, definitely.
Yeah, so shout out to King Solomon. He was the one who hosted it. He's putting all this together. He did a fantastic job. The first hour was on a bunch of different topics. But again, like you said, it's cross-chain, right? So we're getting the attention when we do talk on there from all kinds of new people in the space. I will say that Hedera builders shined in that last hour. It was almost a 4-hour Twitter space. Really impressive. I talked during the second hour. We had a lot of Hedera builders that came up and talked about their projects. The exciting thing is they had in the second hour a keynote. Right. And next week, the keynote is going to be Shane, our CEO. So he's going to get a fair amount of airtime on that next week. I don't know how many people showed up, but I'm sure it was in the thousands. And I'm sure it'll be the same way next week. He forgot to record it. I did the same thing. And I know exactly what he ran into. A lot of times when you go into Twitter space, you click on record. But if you don't click save, it doesn't actually record. I'm not sure if that's exactly what happened in this case, but I know I've had that issue in the past. Also next week, I think they're going to focus on some environmental stuff. So hopefully we can get Rob or Wes on there to get inside that conversation as well. Another thing that just came out is another enterprise level use case from one of our council members, ServiceNow, and this has to do with the ESG space. They have issues in the ESG space with carbon credits and GHG producers double counting some of those carbon credits and things like that. So what they're going to do is they're going to tokenize the emissions, and they're going to tokenize the ecological projects that create the carbon credits. And when those two things meet, they cancel each other out. And that's all going to be tracked using ServiceNow. It's really impressive. And of course, Hedera is going to be the base layer of that. It makes perfect sense to have these environmentally friendly use cases built on Hedera because, of course, Hedera is the most environmentally efficient network we have out there. Did you have any thoughts on this news?
I think the most exciting phrase that I took away from that was that ESG needs a worldwide ledger or, a global ledger. A ledger that tracks ESG assets, tokenized ESG assets, that is, and their corresponding MRV data. So that's like the sensors, that's like, could be human input, that could be, Internet of Things sensors, whatever they have, solar panels, just that data. It all needs to be collated to, especially with something like carbon credits, you need to show that where those carbon credits are coming from, the quality of like the temperature around them, how high quality those credits are. And you need all of this on one single, immutable, public, worldwide ledger for something as massive as the ESG industry, as ESG assets. And to see ServiceNow, who service 80% of the Fortune 500, will be implementing essentially the Guardian into their workflow is just, to me, that's insane. It's like, to me, ESG is probably one of the biggest use cases that could come out of Hedera. It's like the Guardian is best in class for what it does. And it is absolutely necessary for ESG assets. It's like a lot of people say like, oh, DLT is being used for, something that a centralized database could do just as well, and the transparency not needed. There's a lot of arguments. People say that DLT is not the solution for everything, but this is a clear use case whereby DLT is absolutely necessary for this sustainability assets, to make sure that a carbon credit won't be retired twice, for instance, i.e. retirement means taken out of existence or sold 4 times, from someone you don't know in one side of the country to the, Microsoft over here. To tie all that up, just to see, every company in the world needs to be pursuing their ESG ESG agenda. And Hedera is the ledger that can enable them to do this. And the fact that they're there at the heart of ServiceNow servicing 80% of the Fortune 500. To me, that's huge. To me, that's going to be, enterprise adoption. That's going to be mainstream adoption. Starts at these enterprises and trickles down to the smaller companies. If they can set that industry standard with those Fortune 500s, then the whole world will follow. So for me, ServiceNow, ESG, Hedera, one of the biggest use cases we might see.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been talking about the Guardian for a while, and I know that's hard for a lot of people to wrap their head around, that infrastructure. We knew it was important, and here we have a Fortune 500 company that's building a use case using it, which of course the Guardian uses Hedera. So to switch gears a little bit, but another use case that's being pursued by one of our council members, LG and their NFT-enabled TVs. If you're a Hederian and you're in New York City, go through Times Square, because right now they have this up on one of the billboards. They're doing their own marketing for this, and this is what we were expecting. We knew that the marketing would start to be reflected from the council members themselves when they bring their use cases to market. That's when they're going to start to market their use cases, and they aren't going to market Hedera. They're going to market their use cases, which then hopefully will lead to adoption and usage of the Hedera network. So it was exciting to see that. So any thoughts on that one, Zep?
Yeah, like you said, to see them doing their own marketing is great. To see them up on Times Square is great. And to see I think it was a pretty successful, there was a launch event they did in New York that hopefully we'll see a bit more about soon. And I think that was a success. I think they had about 300 people through the door. Really exciting to see that. And yeah, looking forward to see the progression of that use case.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And we might as well just jump into transaction analysis. You want to bring Metrica on up?
Yeah, let's get it.
All right. As far as transaction volume, we're under 1 million transactions per day. Hopefully we see that start to tick up here before too long. Smart contracts are still holding strong at about 10,000 transactions per day. Time to consensus, still about 5 seconds or just under 5 seconds. That's where we've been hanging out for a long time at this point. How are we looking on account creation?
So today we're up 50, well, near enough. We're at 48% increase today. Slightly down on the week, but still on the month, we're up 75% with 117,883 accounts. So I'm not sure what's happened on the week, but on the day to be up 50% on the day, that's that to me. Hopefully we can maintain that growth into next week and see another big week next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the fungible token summary, not a protocol has jumped into first place. So Slime World is doing really well. I love to see that. I still don't know what energy trade token is. So I'm going to have to figure out what is going on with that. It sounds like something that's in the ESG space. We see that Sauce and Wrapped HBAR are doing well. So that's showing that our DeFi space is holding strong. All right, Zep, what about the non-fungible tokens?
So at the lead, we have Hedera Source, who I'm not very well acquainted with. Cool Canines I've heard of. They're in second. Hashbirds I've heard of. And then the other one gets a bit more cryptic. And it says HNT, which is, that's the cash tag for Helium. So I don't know if someone's just pulling our leg there or something. But then, of course, we have Nada Slime World, a massive play-to-earn game on Hedera. Good to see that the NFTs transactions are still up.
Yeah, I'm excited. Next week, we're actually going to have a Twitter space Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have all the big players in there. I want to get MetaWizards in there. We're going to have Dead Pixels. And there was some big news that came out about them. They're actually going to integrate the Dead Pixels NFTs into the MetaWizards game. Do you know anything about that?
So as I understand, I think all Dead Pixels holders will be airdropped a broomstick to be able to play in the game. I think that's the premise of that. But either way, to see two projects coming together like that to collaborate on something more than a giveaway, but like genuine utility, cross collaboration between games, I think that's really cool to see. Yeah, I love to see that.
So does that mean you're actually going to be playing your Ghost in the game?
I don't know if your Ghost will be in the game. I think what is happening is they're airdropping you some kind of broomstick, which maybe that'll be like a custom Dead Pixels one. But I don't think it'll be your Ghost in the game. I think you'll still be on a broomstick.
I gotcha. Well, one of the things that's interesting, we've seen a lot of success from Earthlings, right? And they have their own in-house NFTs that are going to have utility in their game. So that's exciting. But this is taking existing NFTs and then giving them utility in one of the games in the Hedera ecosystem. It's innovative and it's new. It's something that I hadn't heard before.
For sure. Yeah, I'd love to see more of that, definitely.
The other thing that I heard, and they were talking about it on the Earthlings Twitter space, is actually allowing people to rent out some of these NFTs that have utility in their games. That's another innovative thing. You don't necessarily have to give up your asset, but gamers can get the benefit of some of those things that those NFTs will enable in the game. So that's exciting as well. All right, the last thing that I wanted to discuss when it comes to the NFTs is clout art. Now, we just had a Twitter space that's up on our YouTube channel, the HBAR Foundation YouTube channel. You can go ahead and check that out. Do you have any thoughts on what clout art is launching?
Yeah, so I mean, they're launching I think it's already launched. So the ability to take social media NFTs of like influencers' most influential posts, I suppose. And I think they were one of the first teams to actually instigate that last year, or maybe slightly before that. But they've got a strong team behind them. Their team's been there since the development of the ERC 721 standard. I think it was that standard, the NFT standard. And they're a serious team. They seem to know what they're talking about. They seem to have a good strategy. And yeah, I'm excited to see how they expand. Obviously, coming from Polygon to Hedera, how they can expand their influence over here.
Yeah, and I'll try to get them in on that NFT Twitter space that we're going to have next Tuesday. All right, let's move into DeFi. So the first thing we want to cover is SaucerSwap. They still have a total value locked at about $17.5 million. And considering there's been a bit of a pullback in the HBAR and the Sauce market, that's certainly good to see. All right, the farming rewards, which are, of course, are paid out in their native tokens, Sauce and HBAR, are still doing pretty well. Some of the bigger pairs, you got USDC Sauce is sitting at 95%, HBAR USDC is at 71%, Sauce HBAR X is at 60%, HBAR and Sauce is at 68%. So those are holding out pretty good. I think they've drifted down a little bit over this past week. But as we get additional DEXs coming online and some of the assets move to those new DEXs, you're going to see those numbers go up again. All right, so as far as the LP rewards, they did come down a little bit. Looking at pairs like HBAR Sauce is down at 1%, HBAR X HBAR, that's always pretty low, that's at 0.5%. USDC HBAR is sitting at 2.5%, and one of the ones that's usually a bit higher, Sauce Link, is up around 9%. But the big story in Hedera DeFi is definitely on Stader. We saw a jump from about 700 million HBAR to almost 1.5 billion HBAR. Right now we're sitting at 1.465 billion HBAR. So that's really impressive. We more than doubled our total value locked on Stader. What are your thoughts on this one, Zep?
It's just massive. It's like $43 million increase in 2 days. Unless there's like a ginormous whale that's decided to float in, I think it's probably more likely than an exchange has got involved or something like that. So I'm excited to see, hopefully over the coming weeks, or maybe I don't know how long it will take for us to find out, but hopefully something like an exchange maybe would be interesting.
Yeah, it could be an exchange, could be, a custody solution, some kind of enterprise for sure, or institution needs to be involved, because if it was just people getting more attention, you'd think that would go up gradually. It wouldn't just double overnight, because we already had a fair amount of total value locked on there. But of course, that causes the APY to drop significantly. It was up around 20%. Now it's down around 10%, still better than what you're going to get in the bank. And of course, the underlying asset is HBAR there. So from the beginning, if you were participating in this from day one, you've gained about 18%, and that allows the HBAR X to be worth about 1.18 HBAR. All right, so let's just jump into the crypto market. Bitcoin is pretty much flat on the week. It's down 0.1 over the past 24 hours, and it is flat over the past week. As far as HBAR, it has underperformed a little bit. It's down just under 1% over the past 24 hours and about 5% over the past 7 days. We are still holding support, just over support at about 5.5 to 6 cents. Right now, we're sitting at 5.7 cents. Still looking for resistance to reside at that 50-day moving average at about 6.4 cents, but we really haven't been able to get any momentum to the upside. Hopefully when Coinbase launches, we'll be able to make another good spike, but we're not sure when they're actually going to list. They said mid-October, so we're certainly looking forward to that. So, Zep, the big story from the macroeconomic front is on Wednesday, I believe, the UK announced a tax cut. And that's, a major G7 country pivoting towards growth, which is the opposite of what we've seen, out of the Federal Reserve and actually out of their own central bank. So it's counter to what people were thinking. That caused a risk-on environment, which was good for stocks and crypto on Wednesday. But the pound crashed like a rock at the same time. And of course, that caused a lot of international turmoil and cause a risk-off environment going into the latter part of this week. We'll see how that's going to impact markets here today on Friday. We are recording this before the markets open in the United States, so I'm curious to see how that's going to impact things. Any thoughts on this, since this is all coming from your own backyard?
I don't want to talk about it. No, it's what a travesty. I think it's the lowest the pound has been in, well, I don't even know how long. I remember when I was younger, it was like $2 to the pound, and now it's almost equal. In terms of crypto, hopefully if our money printer is going brr, then the Fed might also decide to make that pivot at some point, and then assets like stocks and crypto will start maybe coming up as the DXY comes down. But in terms of on the ground over here, it's looking pretty bleak.
Zep, I was kind of curious. We were just talking about the HBAR in US dollars and just barely holding above support, but the weakness in the pound and some of the other currencies out there, how do you look at the HBAR in some of these other currencies?
Yeah, I pretty much spend the entire time looking at HBAR USDT or USDC. So I'm not that familiar with other currencies, but I know that within GBP, it's a lot more range bound than, like you said, the USD is testing support a bit, but in the GBP, it's a lot more range bound. So maybe that's an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, it's something that we can look at going forward. So that's pretty much all I got for this week. I do want to invite everybody. Next Tuesday at 5 p.m., we have that NFT Twitter space that we're going to hold. We'll try to get all the big players in the Hedera NFT space on that. We also have that Generation Infinity podcast that starts at 5 p.m. on Wednesday. Shane, again, our CEO, is going to be the keynote, and that's going to start around 6 o'clock. Hopefully, we're going to get all of our builders on there to talk as well. That's pretty much all I have. Zeb, is there anything you'd like to add before we let you go?
Excited for HeliSwap, which hopefully will be coming out soon. Excited for Coinbase, which is hopefully mid-October. Excited to hear more about network staking after that whole travesty last week when hash went a bit wild. And what else am I looking forward to? Looking forward to, just next week's news. Looking forward to hopefully the pound recovering a bit, but who knows there. But either way, Hedera ecosystem continues to grow. Great to see these mixed spaces that we're doing. Excited to see Shane go into Generation Infinity, and excited for next week's news. So hopefully, again, it'll be a big one next week.
Yeah, every week we're getting all kinds of news. For everybody that watched, thank you. Like, subscribe, drop a comment below, and we'll see you next week.